in the really deep South, so there wasn't like a lot of creativity. And then I moved an hour away whenever I was about 17, 18. And that's whenever I started exploring my creativity in my artistry. And most of my expression was based off social media. And I was going to this organization and they saw um, my social media and offered me a job to be the creative director of the organization at the age of 18. And that kind of like pushed me into the creative world. And I'm 23 now. And from there, it was like I have like a love-hate relationship for it because I'm thankful for it. But at the same time, whenever I was 18 and I was introduced to the creative world, it was very much like survival just because I didn't have a very high skill set. But at the same time, it taught me a lot of things and I had to grow at a level I probably wouldn't have grown if I wasn't ever put in that predicament. So that's kind of like where I got started. And then from since then, which it's been 5, 6 years, I've had different creative jobs. I've done graphic design, social media management, um, a little bit of video, photography. I've like dabbled in a lot of different things since then. But that's kind of just the background of who I am in my creative journey. Um, and whenever I did get started, I started off on YouTube. Like I learned everything, all of Photoshop, all of my creative skill, the exposure triangle, YouTube videos. Never went to school for it, self-taught, to give you guys a little bit of perspective. But today we're talking about developing your own creative style. And I think like my goal at the end of this call would be that you guys feel like y'all have a definition and feel like y'all can define and refine your unique style by understanding a little bit of yourself and recognizing your influences and building a world around it. That's the goal. And I think that it's very important that we develop our own creative style because in many ways, our creative style and how we develop it is an extension of how we develop ourselves or our self-development. And I feel like I know that like all you guys would agree, but we live in a world where overconsumption, we're surrounded by creatives and graphic designers. So it's like very easy to replicate a design or follow a trend, but your own unique creative style will like make you stand out and attract the right clients and collaboration and exposure. Um, I feel like whenever you can distinct your creative style, it has the power to set you apart from the wide field of creatives and artistry and content that surrounds us every day. So yeah, let's go on this journey. I have three things that I want to point out today while I yap. The three things are who are you as a creative? The second one is the role of imagination. And then the third one will just be building a world around your work. And then I have some sourcing and references. The first one was who are you as a creative? I think that your creative style isn't just about what you make, but it's also about who you are. Um, I feel like for me personally, a lot of questions that I like to ask myself whenever I'm thinking about something like this is, yes, if you have any questions, please take a note. I know like I'm a fireball and I can like speak and say a lot of words and I live in the gray. So a lot of the things I say can like, you can like dig deeper on it. So if you have any questions, please write them down. I would love to process whatever is revealed. Um, but I feel like reflection questions whenever you think about who you are as a creative is what art, design, music, or fashion inspires you the most, and what non-design influences shape your creativity. Maybe it's nature, maybe it's film, maybe it's books, maybe it's culture. For example, beyond design itself, I'm inspired by creation. I love trees. I love the sun. I love the sky and the wonder that's like found in them. I'm drawn to things that feel simple and good. Most of the artists I like are like experimental. I love the band, the Marias. Love Kanye, his art. I know he's kind of doing some crazy things right now. I love Amanda Cook and how she expressed her creativity. I like Solange, and all of them have like this like somewhat ethereal, like atmospheric feel to them, and I can even see that in my design choices that I make. So I think like just taking note of like what that is for you, and kind of like even like I encourage you to go on a deep dive of like who they are, why they create, how they create, what are their references, and things like that. Because your influences leave clues about your style. Um, if you are returning to a certain mood, color, theme, there's parts of your creative like fingerprint that's in that. Um, and if you can put language around it, it's easier to build upon. So that is who you are as a creative. I really encourage you to take that journal prompt. The second thing I want to talk about is the role of imagination. Um, Having a unique style isn't just about technique, it's about imagination. We often think it's about skill, but the most iconic artists and designers that don't just like have a skill set, they also have a vision. They imagine a world that doesn't exist yet, bring them to life. And I was having a conversation with a friend like 3 weeks ago. We were like at Shug's. If you ever been to Dallas, there's a bagel place called Shug's, amazing bagels. If you ever visit Dallas, please go check them out. But I was there 3 weeks ago with a friend, and we started talking about the concept of imagination and just like how important it is and how we've kind of lost that as a society, like the value in imagination and like stewarding it well, um, because it's important and it's valuable. Um, and I think some creative blocks that lead us like to not tapping into that is there's three of them that I listed. The first one is overconsumption, overcreation. We live in a world where there's constant consuming social media, trends, content, opinions. The more we consume, the less we can imagine for ourselves. Instead of creating from within, we start creating from comparison, or just like a lot of noise. So that's the first one. The second one would be fear of being different. Imagination thrives in uncertainty, but we've been trained to fear standing out or having to fit in a box. Trends also make it easy to follow what's already works instead of creating something new and taking a creative risk. And even like within like the following trends, because I get like that's a thing that we live in. There's a way to like see a trend or see something that a lot of people are gravitating towards and like make it your own. And I think that's a good question whenever like that comes about. If you want to like stay authentic and birth something that's new, look at the trend and figure out how you can put your own taste on it. The third point that leads us to creative blocks is the need for instant result. Sometimes creativity takes time. Um, and I feel like even with myself, I can tell like there's moments where I want instant feedback, whether it's likes, shares, validation. And I think sometimes you have to like this like pressures and limit our imagination because we create for approval rather than exploration. And like we need that to like create a unique creative style for yourself if you want to stand out, I believe. Um, in some ways that I've found that I reconnect with my imagination is I give myself permission to play. Not everything has to be a polished product. One thing that I do a lot, I have a lot of passion projects, which is things that I do outside of like a paid gig, a job. It's like something that I feel and that I just like put the effort into. I take it as seriously as I would do like a paid client or my 9 to 5 design job. And I think that gives me the space to like play and explore it and like put potential somewhere and see the outcome. So that's one. I think another one is create before you consume. Let your imagination speak before scrolling for inspiration, which obviously oh, I see the question. I can answer that afterwards because I can't really see the full question. But create before you consume. I think it's important to have some type of practice in your life to where you sit down and you birth something that's new. Which obviously, like, if you're a graphic designer, like, we live off references. Like, there's so many out there. And at the end of this call, or at the end of my teaching, I'll give you some places where I'll find references. But even within that, I think it's important to step away from that to discover things, if that makes sense. Um, the third thing is to embrace the unknown. That's a really good way to reconnect with your imagination. The best ideas come whenever you're willing to explore without a clear answer. Um, as a kid, as kids, imagination wasn't something we try to have. It was just how we experienced what was around us. We didn't question whether our drawing was good or if our idea made sense. We just created, played, believed the world that we built. The best creatives stay childlike. I think that's like a good thing. And yeah, stay childlike, stay open, stay curious, and don't be afraid to like make something that's new or that may feel a little bit weird. Um, but yeah, with that being said, I believe a few weeks ago, stay childlike, yes. I believe a few weeks ago, y'all had a class to where y'all went through the principles of design. And whenever I did my creative course a few years ago, they taught the teacher taught about the creative like rules that help us like create a better product. And then I remember like the last like rule that he said was like it's okay to break the rules. And I think like that's something that I've implemented in my creative style, which obviously like you have to like consider all of the designer rules and like take time and to like sit with those and figure out how they work. But I think once you do that, like be free, like create something that's new, break one of the rules. Yeah. Once you have a strong foundation, you gain the power to bend those principles in a way that feels fresh and unique to you. Um, and then the next thing I want to talk about will be building a world around your work. Your creative style isn't just about aesthetic, it's about feeling, substance, and references. And the substance, like the way that I would define substance, is how does it make you feel? Speaking of like a design, people don't just connect with visuals, they connect with emotions as well. And I think a helpful question to ask is what do I want people to feel when they experience my work? Um, I feel like I'll do that now with my designs. Like if I design something, I'll show a friend and I'll ask my friend, like, what did this make you feel? And hear what they have to say. And if I created, before I created, if I would have like took note of what I wanted it to feel like and it matched up with what my friend felt, then I feel like that's a good, like it made the person feel what I wanted them to feel. That's good because that's what people are attracted to. Um, and also, we're all at different skill levels. And if you consistently evoke a feeling in your craft, whether it's design, music, writing, whatever it is, it can be a real game changer in how you perceive your creative style and how others perceive it as well. Um, Yeah. So even like I think about like my home before I moved in here, I desired to create a home that felt safe, that felt like wondrous, that felt like inspiring. And that was like my goal. And whenever I moved in here and started to like buy things and make it a home, And then there's been multiple people who've came to my home and those were the words that they used to describe it. And it was with like the design of how I set things around, what I added, what I took away, the like feeling of it. And even in that, I know at the beginning of the call, I referenced how I was 18, got hired at this organization, didn't really have a skill set. I do believe that one of the reasons why the organization had the faith to hire me was because they saw with my personal um, passion project, if you will. Um, it provoked a feeling and there was consistency in it. So they saw potential and invested in me, which was like a huge thing to like, not a lot of people do that. So even like though my skill set wasn't at a certain degree, opportunity still came because I learned how to provoke what I wanted to provoke, which is a part of your creative style. So I want to challenge you next time you create, note down what you want it to feel like and what you want it to provoke from other people, and then present that to people around you and see what they say about it and how they feel about it. And I feel like that's a good like way to practice that skill and being more intentional about it. Um, and next thing I want to yap about is sourcing and references. Your creative influences don't have to always come from social media. One of my creative mentors encouraged me to find resources and references in everyday life. So he told me like whenever I went out, I would go out, look at signs, look at magazines, layouts. Still to this day, every once in a while, I'll go to a record store and just like look through the record covers and like take pictures of things that like catches my eye and that I like and use those as references, not always Pinterest or save things on Instagram. Also with textures, you can do textures in public to take pictures of it and then just switch it around in Photoshop. So yeah, I think that's a really dope tool because everyone is on Pinterest, everyone is on Instagram. So sometimes you can see so much similar content. And if you're pulling from everyday life, random things you see, you can bring a different perspective and eye to the table. So yeah, record covers, magazine layouts, signs in public, vintage books, designs, all of those. Also, an app that I love to pull references from is Arena, ARE.NA. It's a really good platform. It's similar to Pinterest, but it's more design heavy. And a lot of the references on there you won't see in everyday life. You won't see it on Pinterest. So it gives you a pull to look at things and find references that a lot of people don't have their hands on, which is good. We need that as creatives and graphic designers. But yeah, I know I've said a lot, so I would love some questions. I think the final takeaways I would like to leave you guys with would just be that your creative style is an extension of who you are. Imagination and intuition are just as important as technique, and people connect with the feeling of your work, not just the visual aspect of it. Um, both in. But yeah, that's my spill.
I got a quick question.
What's up?
How do you balance like consuming art um, and finding the things that you like and not having that influence your creative style to the point where you're like ripping them off, if that makes sense? Or like how are you developing something that's authentic to you while also like appreciating other pieces of art?
That's really good. That's super dope. I feel like a part of the answer would be like a lot of like the notes you guys will get from the meeting, like taking those initiatives and that approach of like invite your own imagination in, be like, oh, I really honor this person and their expression. now I'm going to look at that and take my own imagination and seeing how I can like be inspired, but not be a copy and paste. Um, that I think like applying like the whole class, like applying your own creative style, which I give like sometimes like there's like that nuance because it's like you like that product and like you will use it as a reference. And then there's also like the part where it's like sometimes like I have a full-time job as a graphic designer. Everything I make for them isn't something that like I will apply all of this to because it's just like that's a part of the creative life is just fulfilling needs. I think this is more so for like the provoking or like the artistry side of it. Um, but yeah, I would just invite your imagination in.